What kind of tea you got there?
Mint, iced mint tea.
Iced mint, nice.
Yeah. I'm not going to fall in the crowd and drink coffee like everyone else.
All right. Hey everybody, thanks for joining us today for SketchUp Live. My name is Josh, that's Aaron.
Hey guys.
We're talking about match photo today. So it's a technique in SketchUp that is a specific way of bringing in a photo into your modeling environment and actually doing some pretty cool stuff where you alter the 3D space to match that of the photo.
Right, it's a great tool if you're doing something like want to work on an existing space, something maybe you're doing a remodel or decorating. You can take a photo and build a real quick representation of it inside of SketchUp. It's also really nice if you don't have all the numbers you need. So if you have a good match photo setup and one dimension, you can actually build a pretty good representation of a space or a building without having any more measurements. So we're just going to hop right in. So we're going to come on to my screen real quick and take a look at match photo. Huh? It's a picture of matches. It's match photo.
Nice.
I promise I won't do that again. All right. Let's use match photo. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come in over here and import an image. We're going to start to look at what does not make a good match photo. So Josh and I got to go on a field trip a block and a half away to take a picture of a building. So there's a bookstore right up the street, and I took a couple. This photo can be made to work. It's not ideal, though.
Looks like your phone took a photo right before it fell and exploded.
I was laying on the ground trying to get artsy. Obviously, it's not a bad photo. We could actually make this work, but what's really nice, if possible, is to have my vertical lines vertical, and then I want to have two surfaces kind of fading off in the distance, different directions. Kind of a nice three-quarter view is what I'm looking for. So this is not perfect. So at this point, I've started the match photo process, and I don't want to continue through. This is something that I personally actually got real hung up on several times, especially when I started trying to use match photo. A lot of people at this point just go, close this, start a new one. It's actually pretty easy to remove a match photo. I just had to click Done. And when a match photo is loaded, it'll create a scene. So everything for that match photo is tied to the scene. So to get rid of it, all I have to do is right-click and delete the scene. That takes me back. Do I want to delete it? Yes. And that takes me back to the standard SketchUp view. So good note, if you ever, for whatever reason, want to get rid of the match photo information, you can do that. Now, I'm going to go in and import again. We'll try this another time. So I have one that is labeled as good. I'll assume that's going to work well.
Hang out on that Use New Match Photo.
Sure.
Because most people are familiar with the other two options there.
That's true. So one of the things I want to make sure I have is the file format. So I have all supported image types selected right now. If there is a specific image type you want to filter, if I only want to see PNGs or something like that, you can filter that. I just generally leave on all supported image types. The other thing is, how is this photo going to get used? So I have three options here. I can import it as an image. An image is just going to come in and basically be a picture floating around in SketchUp. A texture, which would be applied to a surface, or in this case, a new matched photo. So I'm going to go ahead and import that. All right, so when it comes in, I get these lines all over. I got green lines, blue lines, red lines, yellow lines. That's all the lines. So what I'm going to do now is I want to actually align these. This is kind of my 3D grid. You can see here I have these grid lines fading off in the distance every direction. I want to use these lines to basically set my 3D space in this image. So I'm going to start with the origin. I'm going to grab this origin point and I'm going to place it somewhere on the model. I'm going to use this corner that's facing closest to me. This is probably not an absolute requirement, but it's just kind of a habit I got into, is using that closest point when I line up these images. And now I want these two red lines to run parallel on one side of the building and the two green lines to run parallel on the opposite side. So I'm going to grab them. I can actually grab them in the middle and drag them around and drop them, get them close to where I want them to be. And then grab a handle, click, and then just drag that where I want to. So one thing to note here is I don't actually have to drop this point directly onto a point on the image. SketchUp doesn't actually know what this image is. It knows nothing about what's actually going on. What's important is that the length of this line ends up on top of the line I'm referencing. So I can actually do something like pull it out here, and I grab this line and pull it down here. And again, all that's important is that I move them up and down so that that line aligns with the line in the image. So again, don't worry about getting exactly perfectly lined up with the points because it really doesn't matter. All right, my second line, again, I just have to pull off of something parallel to that first line. It doesn't have to be part of the building. It could actually be anything that's perpendicular or parallel to that first line. So this car over here would work if that I knew that was perfectly straight. Lines in the sidewalk. In this case, I'm going to actually use one of these lines in the building. So I'm just going to drag this up here. And as you move these around, your origin's going to bounce all over and get wonky. That is a technical match photo term. But once we get done, we'll see that should line up perfectly with the edge of the building. Same thing over here with the green. Going to get about where I want it to be. Pull it up. I'll use the same roof line right here. And there we go. Same thing here. I'm going to use, I'll use the bottom of this little overhang here as my reference. Again, I'm not worried about getting that line just here as long as it lines up overall. So that once I did that, just as a confirmation, I can see that blue line looks like it lines up directly with that brick line right there. So that's a good sign. That's a sign that I'm about right.
Scale figure is looking a little bit big there, though.
I do have an issue with scale right now. I'm not sure exactly how tall Stacy is, but I don't think she's in the 10-foot range. So what I need to do is I need to scale this down. I was mentioning before, really what I need is a single dimension. So I need to know how tall something is. So when we were there, we estimated the bottom of this light was at about 8 feet. So what I can do is I can come over here to spacing, and I can type in 8 foot, enter. What that does is that grid, it's kind of hard to see, but I have these grid lines. Those grid lines are now 8 feet apart. So that means my first dotted line for the grid is 8 feet above here. So I can now scale this drawing down by clicking and dragging on the blue axis. And you can see the green lines coming in, and I'm just going to drag it down until it's at about the bottom of that line.
And that guy cruising by on his bike, that was a nice little comparison there.
Right, so he's a pretty good, you can kind of see, yeah, that's about the right height. This again is a reference. So the model I create from this match photo is not something I would want to go like build from, but it does give you a real quick and easy way to take a photo and very few other pieces of information and create a representative model. So we're going to model real quick and just kind of get the outside shape of this building, and we'll see how that works. Once I'm good, I like the way this is lining up, it looks good, I'm going to hit done.
It's really good for remodeling because you can get the existing space kind of figured out as more of a representation, not a lot of detail, but enough to then draw your 3D model with a lot of detail appended onto that, and it looks pretty good.
Absolutely.
We've seen a lot of cool examples.
Yeah, remodeling's huge, and like I said, interior design is a big thing too, where people use it.
Yeah.
All right, so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to start by drawing some stuff in 3D space. So again, I'm on a photo, but as I start to draw, I'm just going to grab a rectangle, and I'm going to start the origin and pull it up the red plane. Oop, red. There we go. There we go. Lock to the red plane using an arrow key. And I'm going to go to right about there. Then I'm going to switch to push-pull, and I'm push this down. I'll just go the whole length of the building, so it's somewhere down there. So what that's giving me, what I'm actually creating right now is just regular SketchUp data. There's nothing fancy about it. What is fancy is that it is forcing it into perspective, so it's going to show up in creating a model that is about the right size and about the right spot relative to that image. So one thing that people hit, again, newcomers to match photo is, uh-oh, I rotated away. How do I get back to that view? How do I get my match photo back in? Again, that tab that it creates when you first load it in, hit that, and your model lines back up with it. Something else to note, just something to, because again, this is something else to hit on. When you do come out here and rotate away and go back, if you have your animation settings set that you have like a 3-second transition into the animation, that's exactly what's going to happen when you hit match photo. So rather than snapping right back to it, it's going to kind of move the model over. And if you're okay with that, that's great. If you're jumping in and out of your perspective versus match photo back and forth, it can get a little bit tiresome. So what you might want to do in that case is go to Model Info, hit Animation, and just turn off Scene Transitions. That's going to make it so it just snaps immediately to match photo when you click on the tab. All right, so just take this a little bit further. So what I want to do now is I want to just pull that roof up and make this kind of overhang right here. Well, I can't use a push-pull from right here because I can't see it. But again, I can come out here. I can turn on my push-pull command. I can click on that top. And then I can click back here. So now I'm pulling it up. Even though my cursor is on the other side of that face, I'm still using push-pull. I don't actually want to push-pull the whole roof up. I want to create a new surface. So I'm going to tap the modifier command. I'm on a Mac, it's Option. It is Control on Windows. And I'm just going to pull that up, kind of an indiscriminate amount. I don't know exactly how big this is going to be yet. I'm going to go a little bit big intentionally. Because what I'm doing now is I'm going to use push-pull to pull these two corners out also. And now I can start aligning it to that actual corner. Wow, that was a pretty good shot. That wasn't...
Nice job.
I'm sorry, but well done. All right, so now I'm going to use push-pull again. Jump back over here and pull it down to right about there. So you get the idea. This is how, so I could come through here. This is going to actually come out a little bit. Using that as a reference, one of the things that I would want to, if you've played with Photo Match before, or Match Photo before, you probably have felt like you're stuck. I can only model in here, but you can actually jump in and out of those views. So you can actually jump right over to a 3D view that you want, view from above, below, left, right, and start your editing and jump back and forth in the match photo. So that's a big deal because that makes it a lot easier and it makes it a lot more usable when you're not locked into one view all the time. So that's kind of an overview of just kind of the basics. That was kind of the high level that we wanted to make sure we hit. Something else I want to look at, obviously match photo is something we use a lot for buildings. But it's not the only way to use match photo. I'm going to go ahead and start another new model. And I'm going to import a different image. And I'm going to pull in this picture of a bike locker. So this is actually sitting out in back of our office. And if I was doing something like I was modeling our office or an office building, this would be something that would be kind of a nice entourage to put around the building. Just to have that bike locker there done. And I could probably go in here using Photo Match or, just taking some measurements and go model a fairly good bike locker. But what I want to do is I want to do real quick and easy. And I'm going to use a feature called Project Textures inside of Photo Match to create a quick piece of entourage just from a couple of photos. So again, very few actual pieces of data. I don't actually know how big anything in this bike locker is, but we're going to use it to make a quick representation that I can use as entourage. So again,
yeah, the more photos you have, the more information you start to build about that thing.
Right. So one of the things I'm going to do with this is I'm actually going to use two photos. So I'm going to use this photo that's the front, and then I took a second photo of the back side. So what's going to be important here, so I'm going to get my green and red lines lined up. I'm going to use this little inset down here as one line. I'll use this top line. The top line's actually a little bit bowed, I noticed. So I'm going to go kind of like that to get that top line there. I'll use some of these lines across the bottom. Part of them are obscured by snow, but I can get pretty close. That looks pretty good. And again, you hear I'm using technical terms like pretty good and not bad. Again, this is not something that's going to get machined when I'm done. This is something that I'm going to use as just kind of set dressing, so I'm not too stressed about having it be absolutely perfect or anything like that. Now, origin placement becomes incredibly important with this particular model because I have a second photo. I want to make sure that my origin can be placed in...
Okay.
Right. Well, welcome back for that impromptu time off right there.
For the few of you that are watching, we're going to wait a little bit for the room to fill, perhaps.
That was not SketchUp's fault. So, how have you been?
Modeling some bike lockers, huh?
Yeah, so just to back up a few steps, we'll do that. And then hopefully everybody will get back on and we'll pick up where we were. So, we did have a comment come through that the sun was not shining on the bike locker when they took the photo, and that is true. I just kind of grabbed this kind of as an afterthought, and I didn't wait for the time of day that it was shining on there. So it is a little dim, but it'll still work for our purposes.
If we need to, we could adjust the opacity, but
yeah, I could go through and actually take this into Photoshop too and lighten it, but for what we're doing, this is going to work. This is the shady side of the building, so it's good that our entourage is shady, right? Speaking of shady...
So I think you're talking about the origin being extra important with the two photos because
yes,
in this method of using two photos, the origin is going to be kind of like that anchor point.
Right, so my second photo is from opposite this corner over here, so kind of where this, these garbage cans are looking that direction. So I can see either this corner or this corner. I don't want to make my origin this close corner this time because I won't be able to align it for the other photo. And that's a little bit if you don't get that description exactly, just give us a second because I'm about to go do exactly that. So I'm going to drag my origin down, I'm going to put it here on this left point. Looks good. I'm going to move it vertically so it lines up with where I think the bottom of that locker is. And the last step is scale. So the bike locker is about maybe 4 feet tall. So again, I'll set my grid to 4 feet. And I will click and drag on the origin or on the blue line to get that lined up with about the top. That looks good. I think that's... Never seen Stacy stand next to the bike locker, but I think that's about what it would look like if she did. All right. Once I'm good with that, I'm going to hit done. And I'm going to just take Stacy out right now. And I am going to, this is going to be a pretty simple model because I'm just going to make a rectangle about like that. I'm going to pull it through to about there. And that represents what I want for my entourage. But it doesn't look very good. I really want these images on here. So what I can do is over here in the Match Photo window, which is the thing we keep jumping to. That's where we click Done. That's where we set the spacing is in the Match Photo window. I'm going to hit Project Textures from Photo. When I click that, and now I come and animate around, it's actually taken those textures and placed them right on the model. So this is what I was saying. If I want to do a quick and easy entourage, this knocks all the time out of it. The downside, of course, is since the texture did not, that image did not actually project onto the back sides, they're still white. So what I need to do now is I need to actually get that second photo. So I'm going to come up here to File. I'm going to import, and I'm going to grab that second bike locker image. It's going to import right on top of however my photo is set right now. So I don't want to get too hung up on this box right now. What I'm going to do is, just like a regular Match Photo, I'm going to grab my origin. I'm going to put it where I think it needs to be, right about there. And of course I can come back and change around a little bit as I need to.
And that's where we're matching the anchor point on the other side.
Right. This was the same corner from the opposite view.
You can see that in both photos.
And then I'm going to drag my points around just like I did on the other side. Again, the box is going to swing all over the place, and that's fine, not a big deal. But when I get done, I should be pretty close. You actually see there, it's, once I started that last line, it's kind of coming into detail there. And then now just scale it back up. And that looks pretty good. And if I'm good there, I hit done. And again, so at this point I haven't projected, but if I come back to Bike Locker 2, hit Project Textures, now what I have is, like I said, a simple piece of entourage that I could grab that, make a group or component out of that, and I could drop that into an office building parking lot, something like that, with not a whole lot of work. That, I mean, that you'd see if I didn't talk so much. That probably would have taken me about a minute to model. Well, okay, if we didn't drop the stream and I didn't talk so much, it would have probably been about a minute of modeling, and real quick, real easy to do. So that's kind of the basics. We have some more practical applications of Match Photo, and some exciting unveiling to do. You can tell it's exciting because I wiggled my fingers. Jack gave some jazz hands. So,
all right, let's switch
Josh
over.
has some photos to look at.
So this example, I will show the same technique but in interior space. So we're going to go inside the building.
Okay. Which building should we go into, Josh?
I've got a photo here of a hotel.
That wouldn't be the JW Marriott Desert Spring Resort and Spa.
That's the one. That's exactly the one.
That happens to be the location of our upcoming SketchUp 3D Basecamp 2018, doesn't it?
Yeah, so I'm going to choose this hallway JPEG here. Use as new match photo is selected, and it may look a little boring here. It's kind of a standard hallway, but yeah, this is from our site visit. We're taking a look at the 3D Basecamp venue.
So this is what if you go to 3D Basecamp, you'll get to actually walk down this hallway in real life.
Yeah.
Until then, we'll do match photo and make a SketchUp model of it, which is almost as good as real life. Well, in some cases better, but in this case, the real thing will be available to you this September. So check out our website, check out 3D Basecamp. We actually have some more photos coming too. The good ones, the outside ones.
It's a pretty nice hallway though.
Yeah, this is a good hallway. It's not to detract from the hallway.
It's very wide. All right, so a little bit more confusing with the interior space because you have to really be more careful with the perspective lines. First step is still the same though. You want to adjust this origin point. So if I zoom in here, you can see that sign is kind of obscuring the actual corner, but I'm going to place it where I think it is, and then as I move the other things around, we'll see how it works. I'll go a little bit faster because Aaron kind of described everything as he was going, so I'll try to go a little faster. In this case, I need the green on this side, and you'll start to see why as these kind of get moved around. As Aaron mentioned, we don't need to be totally exact where these endpoints are. We just care about the perspective line being right and matching the photo. So I'm going to just kind of place them there. Looks pretty good.
And again, Josh is not going for a perfect construction model, but a tool to represent what this space looks like in 3D.
Yeah, and fortunately the top, we've got some nice hard lines to follow there, so that's pretty useful. This is where the photo does really help if you've got very clear lines that match the perspective line. So this last adjustment, when I'm doing the fourth one, I kind of keep my eye on that vertical blue line, because here I don't care as much about the exactness of where that's placed, but I do care about that blue line being about right there. So that looks pretty good. Ready to start modeling. Stacey looks a little bit small there, so she's telling us the scale is not quite right. So what I'll do is go in spacing, and we've got 7-foot spacing right now, which is kind of nice. It's about the height of a door roughly. So it may not come through on the screen too clearly, but this green dotted line here, I'm going to try to click and drag to make that hit the top of that door. So now that one grid square is a 7-foot distance in our model, which is about right. And that looks pretty good, so I'll click Done. And next step here is to start drawing. So I'm going to use my first point, because right now there are no points in the model. The origin is the only point I can snap to, so it's a nice place to start.
Right, and that's actually a very important point, because just like with SketchUp, if you just arbitrarily pick a point in space, you have no frame of reference for where is that. Is that far away? Is that close? So again, working off of the origin to start is very important.
Yeah.
So that's kind of where you always want to start with match photo.
And the next line I'm drawing here, this is pretty cool because inferencing becomes really useful. If I hold down Shift now to lock the green axis, you can see that I'm actually able to just hover over in this direction and see where that red line is going to be. So I know that that's about the right point there. And if I cruise back all the way over here, that's good. And then now I can lock the green again and just click back on the origin point. So I can pretty quickly make this rectangle without really knowing where to click precisely. This part, I'm just going to arbitrarily push that up and over here so I can delete this front face. Now we've got a box for looking inside. And
so
then
can you rotate away real quick to show what you just made?
Yeah, so that's all we've got right now. And this is a good chance to, let's orient these faces right, because we're dealing with the inside faces here are going to be the faces that we want to be putting textures on. So let's reverse these so that the white is facing out.
Perfect.
So there we are. And I'll go back through and push pull again if I need to. That actually looks pretty close. Maybe I don't need to. Let's see, that one down a little bit. All right, that's the basic space there. And now I can start drawing. Let's say we wanted to start here. I can draw, the corner here is going to be about right there. I can kind of guess. And then right there. And go to the top. Back in that way. So inferencing helps a lot for this kind of stuff. If I orbit in there, I can see what I just did. It's a good chance now to make this a group. So I'll right-click, make that a group.
So you're drawing that wooden doorway right now.
Yeah. And as you saw Aaron do, if I push-pull or start a push-pull operation like this, I can go back into the scene and still be in the push-pull mode. So now I can push-pull and just click and stop that about right there. And let's go do some more tracing here. Just kind of roughly figure out. And this is where inferencing is nice. I can hold down Shift, and I know that's about right there. Same thing here. And then I'm going to push-pull this back, maybe go inside the group here, turn off the rest of the model, just punch that through. Looks good.
All right, so a couple questions there.
Yeah.
So obviously, as soon as you animated, match photo went away. I got that. You said go into the model. What does that mean when you're into the group?
I'm not sure what I meant by that.
You went into the group, and then everything else disappeared. Can you explain kind of what the steps were there?
The hide rest of model. So in this case, it was nice to hide the rest of the model here because I want to make sure that I smash that face together and cancel it out. And with the rest of the model in the way, I can't quite tell. So I just did the component edit hide rest of model, which I tied to a shortcut. So I just made H that shortcut.
Perfect.
So now let's take a look at the little arc piece here. And Aaron, you want to talk about curved stuff with Match Photo?
Yeah, that's something that a lot of people get, I don't want to say hung up on, but they think that that's not something you do in Match Photo. It's obviously it's real easy to draw straight lines and horizontal surfaces and that kind of thing inside of a Match Photo because that's what you're setting up. You're setting up basically a 3D grid. But any of the tools can actually work. So Josh right now is drawing an arc basically parallel to that piece of the model, and that works just like it would if you were in a regular SketchUp model.
Yeah, because I know what's happening here, I can get the photo out of the way because I know what I'm drawing now, so I don't really want to be in this kind of weird photo geometry mode. Now that I know I've got that arc in place, now I can just jump in and actually kind of use a regular SketchUp view here.
Right. So again, that's what we were talking about before, where Match Photo is a reference for you to use while you're start to model. It's not a requirement. It shouldn't be handcuffed. You shouldn't be limited and only model from one view, but constantly jumping to and forth is really important.
So here I can copy that entire, looks like that's not in. So I'm going to cut this out. So if I go to Edit and cut this piece, I can paste it in place in here. I messed that up there, so paste in place. Now that's actually inside the rest of the...
You want to explode it out so it's part of the group or keep it separate?
I'll keep it separate for now.
All right.
So then this part, I can copy this back into the hallway space, and you'll see it kind of recede as if it's really part of the photo. So right about there, and just keep doing a move copy.
And you'll notice as the geometry starts to move, it's bright white. That's that component being copied over. As soon as Josh actually places it, then the photo gets laid back over top again. So it turns white while you're manipulating it, but as soon as we're back in a Match Photo, the Match Photo image is always laid over top of whatever you're working on. So a lot of times it's something to keep an eye on because it can get a little bit confusing sometimes if you're not sure what you're looking at. But you got to remember that when you're in Match Photo, the image is almost like it's on your screen laid over SketchUp.
And now we can project those textures, sort of bake them onto the geometry here. So if I just click on Project Textures, we'll overwrite those materials and take a look and see what happens. As you can see, Stacy was kind of in the way, so she sort of creates this interesting shadow there. So you may want to delete stuff that's in front of something that you want a texture to project onto. But as you can see here, it looks, it's not perfect, but at certain vantage points, this gives us an idea of the space. And, for practical reasons, Aaron and I were talking about creating some, maybe some vendor desks like this that we might toss into space. We'll group this for now. Oops.
So something else to notice, when you saw when Josh projected the photo and then orbited inside, it got darker. So again, initially what we were looking at here was just the image laid over the top of the SketchUp model. When he actually projected the textures, then they actually became textures on those scenes, so they receive the lighting, so whatever he has set up for his shadows and that sort of thing are then projected onto those textures. So that's why that's something that's kind of odd. So we'll look at it one way, and then as soon as you hit project textures, it'll get dark because you're no longer looking at an overlaid image. You're actually looking at textures applied, and then the lighting that you have set up in SketchUp applied to those textures. There you go. So that's why it's darker there.
Yeah. So if we cruise through, the farther we go, the less detail we see. So it gets a little bit less useful the further we are from that vantage point.
And you can see the shadows, again, those white spots that are caused by those doorways.
Yeah. All right, let's move on to another example.
All right.
Also in 3D Basecamp venue here, we had an option to, they asked us if we wanted to think about placing a logo, shine like a light on part of the building. So I'll bring up a photo here This one is the projected logo, JPEG. We'll bring that in. So right here, they said that we could project some kind of SketchUp thing on the wall if we wanted to. So
and again, if those of you guys who did not catch it, this is an image from the JW Marriott Desert Spring Resort and Spa, where SketchUp 3D Basecamp 2018 will be held this September.
So we'll just move these lines in place. So this is actually going to help us see what it might look like. And in SketchUp, you could do this a different way. You could model this without Match Photo and place the graphics kind of where they should be. But this is a little bit better way to see what it might look like.
Yeah, and that's an important point, is that Match Photo is just a lot of times a good time saver, or I think a lot of people who are used to SketchUp would do a lot of this kind of stuff manually. You go in and draw up a rectangle and make it represent the space you're going to look at, that sort of thing. But Match Photo is just a huge time saver, because it can really make these kind of steps, which be a lot of guesswork and that sort of thing, actually fairly accurate, or looking pretty accurate for like this representation.
I'm just guessing here about 12 feet for each of these floors. It's getting closer. It's hard to see exactly.
Oh, that's good.
We'll call that good for now. And I'm going to delete I'll say done first, and delete the scale figure there because I don't want to snap to any part of that geometry. And then just kind of roughly draw a box first, and we'll push-pull that. We can drop this down to the roof height.
You got that animation turned on?
You mean slower?
The animation between scenes?
Yeah, that is true. Well, let's draw this piece here. And we'll push-pull that out just a little bit. And we're getting pretty close here to a space. I think that'll work. Let's actually push this in a little bit. So we're just dealing with this part here. Okay, so now I'm ready to bring in an image. So I'm going to import again, but this time I'll use it as an image, not a matched photo. So File Import, and I'll look for the 3D Basecamp 2018 Flame PNG, but make sure I go Use as Image, and we'll import that here and place that roughly in the right spot first. And this is about the space that we have to project something, so looks okay there. And then with Match Photo, it's probably a good idea to hide some of your edges, because in this case we're using the image to show detail, not so much the geometry. So if I just go through and hide some of these lines, whoops, not the logo.
And you're just using Erase with the modifier key?
Erase, holding down Shift. And so now let's project those textures real quick and see what's happening here. Not bad, but really with this example, the best view of this is just this view with the photo. We didn't even really need to bake those textures on there, because we now have an idea of what it would look like. So,
and one of the nice things that comes out of this is, assuming we were pretty good with our grids and setting up that reference picture, you could actually go in and pull a dimension, say, off of your image to see how big that would have to be to fill up that space.
Right.
So
Yeah.
you go in there and actually say, okay, this is going to be a 40-foot tall image, and you'd have a pretty good ballpark of that
true.
dimension.
Yeah.
Very cool. We have any other images of the resort?
Oh, yeah, we do.
I mean, it looks awesome, that hallway, and looks good, but I bet we could do better.
We do have a few more. This
Cool.
is, oh, yep, there's that spot right there.
Well, if you didn't want to come before, you probably want to come now. Very nice.
Not a very welcoming place, is it?
Yeah, it looks rough. I'd hate to have to spend a week there talking about SketchUp. And you see that even though we are going to Palm Springs, we do still have some mountains in the background there. So
Yeah.
it won't feel totally out of place.
Yeah.
It's not a ski resort, but it's still pretty good.
Oh, there's a 3D model, an actual 3D model.
Yeah, talk about this. This is kind of cool.
What's the hotel again?
That is the JW Marriott Desert Springs Resort and Spa.
Yeah. So there's a old school physical model, which is always good to have that too.
Yeah, Josh said they actually have a physical model of the entire building at the resort. So, if that's not a sign that that's where we should have it, I guess. So, Yeah, so that is
probably about it.
Kind of covers Match Photo. If you guys do have questions, of course, throw them up there. Apparently we were so incredibly
Is anyone
comprehensive. 300 people watching. Somebody's got to ask a question, right? And just a fun fact, we did learn through this broadcast that Stacy is 5'4", so that's a good number to have there available for you. All right.
No questions? All right, well,
mostly we apologize for that little service interruption. Not sure what happened. Facebook just kind of dropped out from under us, and it was a weird instance, but we're glad you all came back, so that's great.
All right, well.
We do have a question about relocating the axes. Sometimes you need to locate the origin so it's in the photo. It seems like you need to relocate them before importing the image.
Once you've done so, you can't edit the axis location.
No, you can actually, if you, just to hop in here real quick, I'll show this on our bike locker because it's what's up. So if I jump back to this match photo, I can at any point hit the little gear here, and that gives me all the controls. So I can at this point, if I wanted to, grab that origin, oops, grabbed the wrong thing. I could grab that origin and move it anywhere I want to. The downside to doing that, of course, is going to be that at this point I've already started modeling, so I'm actually moving the whole world around there. But if you do something where you model something and you start to model and realize it's not right, you can always hit the little gear in the match photo window and go reassign any of that geometry. So any of those guide points or those reference lines can be reapplied. Another question about top view images. This is really specifically, this tool is created for perspective images, taking something that ideal image is like we're showing exterior is that exterior corner, or in an interior corner, an interior view, something where I have good vanishing points. That's really what you're looking for with Match Photo. A top-down view, really, I mean, I guess you could have an exaggerated top-down view where you're looking into weird, like, extended angles, but really for a top-down view, that's just looking at an image from above and tracing on top of it. So.
More for photos where you might be walking around snapping a photo at human height.
Right, yeah, exactly. So viewing things from the side is really what that's intended for. So I can't really think off the top of my head how or what the advantage would be for using it from a top view image.
Yeah, so if you want to practice, maybe as you're walking around outside and you see some buildings with nice perspective lines, that's a good chance to practice and use that and just see how it works. Because once you kind of have to do this once with an example for ideas to come about for real projects. So I think it's good to practice this with something that you just randomly see.
Yeah.
And then now you know, hey, next time I can use this because I know how to do it.
Right. Well, it's a great tool, so take a look. I think that kind of wraps us up. What we're going to do on our way out is Josh is going to flip through those pictures. We had a request to go through the venue pictures one more time, so we will leave you with a couple more views of the JW Marriott Desert Springs and Resort, the home of 2018 SketchUp 3D Basecamp in September.
Oh yeah.
And we'll link to the website in the description of this video, so you can learn more about what's going to be at Basecamp content besides this beautiful resort and Josh and myself.
Yeah.
All right.
Thanks for joining us today. We will see you next time.
Thanks, guys.